Hello again, my friends, and welcome back to my channel. And yes, I'm wearing the cap again. I'm actually thinking about making this like a standard item in my videos that I always wear. We will see, but I kind of like the idea. And you know, it's Star Wars. Everyone likes Star Wars, right? So yeah, this time we're looking at some more DC comics, early DC comics. If you haven't been following my channel, I've started reading DC Comics and I started from the beginning all the way back in 1935, and I've covered on my channel the years 1935 to 1937 so far, and this time we're looking at 1938. We start off the year by basically the same cast of characters as we had in 1937. You know, Dr. Occult is still solving paranormal crimes, Sandra is doing her Secret Service stuff, and Mark Marson is off on interplanetary adventures. In 1938, New Adventure Comics changes name to just Adventure Comics. More fun comics and detective comics continue as before, and we say hello to newcomer Action Comics. We are continuing the trend of getting longer and longer stories in each issue, consequently resulting in better storytelling overall, if you ask me. And we're also getting more and more stories in color, which I think is really nice. Overall, there's very little gray areas in these stories. It's very black and white, you know, bad guy versus good guy, no ambiguity to the stories. Thus, to a modern reader of these comics, the stories will appear possibly less sophisticated and definitely less nuanced than what we are used to today. And it can be a bit of a challenge to get into the golden age writing style. Personally, I actually find the lack of grey areas to make for pretty good escapism, which is exactly what I'm after in these stories. In 1938, we get to say goodbye to a bunch of characters such as Dr. Occult and Sandra, which is sad since they were among my favorites. But we'll also get to say hello to a bunch of new characters, and most notably Superman, which I'm not going to talk about in this video. I'm actually going to do a separate video on his early adventures when I talk about this baby here. So be on the lookout for that video. It will turn up hopefully pretty soon. We will see, but hopefully pretty soon. A couple of other characters making their debut in the same issue as Superman, Action Comics #1, is Tex Thompson and Satara Master Magician. Tex Thompson start out as just a regular adventurer and later become a superhero, you know, later down in the DC Comics history. And Satara is, I suppose, most famous for being the father of a superheroine, Satana, which has not appeared yet. I think she's created much later in the history, but I'm really looking forward to getting to know her later on. Satara is by far my favorite, and Tex Thompson, in my opinion, is less interesting, but that is mostly due to the artwork just being really ugly, like so ugly, so ugly. A couple of other characters of note, none of which are superheroes, and both of which were actually introduced in 1937, but whose stories continue throughout 1938, are Speed Saunders and Slam Bradley. Speed Saunders is a cousin to the very first Hawk Girl, which we have not seen yet, but will enter the scene later, and Slam Bradley's son will later date Catwoman, so we are starting to see the connections to what will later become the big DC universe here, and I think that's really interesting. We also in 1938 see the first appearances of the Masked Ranger and the Crimson Avenger, two masked vigilantes fighting crimes in their own ways, and I especially found the Crimson Avenger to be very enjoyable and pretty good stories. Overall, I would say this is a pretty good year for the company. it's not called DC Company or DC Comics at this time. It will get that name later, but in essence, it's the same company that has published these comics. And I would say that 1938, so far, out of the ones, the years that I've worked my way through, has been the very best one. The issues are still dominated by crime thrillers and like regular adventure stories, and we're seeing less and less of space adventure stories in the style of Mark Marson. But we're also starting to see more and more of the kinds of stories that will shape comics the way we know it, and that is the superhero stories, of course. And it's been very interesting to see these beginnings. So that was everything from me this time. Are you a fan of DC Comics or superhero comics? Have you perhaps read some of these older ones that I've talked about? Or if you just have anything in general to say about comics and nerdy stuff, comment down below in the comment section. Like and subscribe if you feel like it, and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.